Imagine a world where each day's work is not an act of creation, but a slow drain on your very essence. What if the job you depend on isn't a path to prosperity, but a system designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of unending work? This isn't about career fulfillment. It's about a system that can slowly diminish your very existence. This is why wage slavery is a killer. The cost of not understanding this is not merely a bad job, but a diminished life, lacking purpose, filled with stress, and possibly illness. The true cost is your time, energy, and even your health. This dehumanizing system slowly erodes your essence, reducing you to a cog in a machine rather than a living, breathing individual. It kills the unique qualities of what makes you human. You are not merely choosing to work. You are being pulled into a cycle where survival depends on constant labor, where the need for money forces you to participate in a system that seems designed to perpetuate its own endless loop, a hamster wheel of earning, spending, and needing more to continue the charade. The modern work structure often prioritizes productivity and profit over the human element, resulting in dehumanizing work conditions. Think of the repetitive and monotonous tasks on factory assembly lines, or the high-pressure environments of call centers where employees are reduced to mere numbers and scripts, their creativity and autonomy completely stripped away. In these settings, the individual is not viewed as a person with unique talents and potential, but as a replaceable component within the larger system. This enforced conformity leads to the erosion of personal identity and a feeling of being a nameless face in a sea of others, each day bleeding into the next. This loss of individual purpose and creativity contributes to a sense of deep dissatisfaction and a gnawing feeling that there must be something more, that you were not born just to work. The modern worker is increasingly starting to feel trapped, caught in a system that feels impossible to escape, where each day is the same, and there is no real path to freedom. Is the work we do designed to create meaning and contribution, or is it a mechanism to maintain the status quo and keep you in line? Behind the seemingly benign facade of the modern workplace, there are hidden mechanisms that perpetuate this system of wage slavery, suggesting that it is not simply an accident, but perhaps even by design. The popular narratives that equate success with hard work, material wealth, and a specific career path are constantly reinforced by media, marketing, and social pressures, all meticulously crafted to ensure your continued participation in the system. These narratives are not organic to society, but are intentionally planted to keep people in the cycle. These questions and many more can be answered if you join me on this journey of discovery. Stay tuned to learn more and find your path out. The dehumanization we see in the modern workplace is not a new phenomenon. Its roots can be traced back to the very foundations of industrial capitalism, where Karl Marx first identified the concept of labor alienation. Marx argued that under capitalism, workers become estranged from the products they create, the labor process itself, their fellow human beings, and ultimately from their own human potential. Consider the 19th century factory worker, toiling endlessly on an assembly line, their movements reduced to repetitive mechanical actions. They had no connection to the final product, be it a shoe or a piece of fabric. Their efforts simply became an anonymous contribution to a larger, impersonal process. This separation from the fruits of their labor and the labor itself was a key component of alienation and a foundational issue for a worker's identity and their sense of purpose. It is not a coincidence that this pattern continues today and is, in fact, becoming more intensified. This system is designed to make you feel separated from your work. What was once a physical separation is now a spiritual one. In this system, your value is not tied to your contribution, but rather to your ability to produce profit for someone else. This is the foundation of the erosion of individuality. This alienation goes beyond just the physical separation from the work. It strikes at the core of the worker's sense of self. Marx argued that in a capitalist system, the worker is reduced to a mere commodity, a tool for production rather than an individual with inherent worth. Their labor, which should be an expression of their unique human potential, is instead sold for a wage, transforming their very essence into a means to an end. Think of the modern office worker, their days spent behind a desk, their creativity and personal initiative often stifled by rigid structures and bureaucratic processes. They often feel like a replaceable part in a vast, uncaring system, their individual contributions seemingly inconsequential, and their very presence only as important as their ability to generate revenue. This feeling of being a mere cog in a machine with no individual value eats away at the core of what makes us human, slowly diminishing our sense of purpose and worth. This leads directly to a loss of self and a deep feeling of purposelessness. This system does not want you to feel unique or special. It wants you to believe that you are just like everyone else and easily replaceable. This alienation is not just a philosophical concept. It's a lived reality, an experience that permeates the daily lives of countless individuals around the world. When people are disconnected from their labor, they become disconnected from themselves. This is not merely a theoretical discussion. It's the root of much of the suffering people experience in their jobs. The sense of being trapped, feeling like a cog, the purposelessness of the job, is not accidental. It is a result of the system. The feeling of being stuck is not a personal problem, but a direct result of the designed system itself. This constant feeling of purposelessness leads to a sense of being trapped in a cycle of dependence, where the need for survival outweighs the desire for purpose and self-expression. The core of our humanity, our desire to contribute, to create, to make an impact on the world, is slowly chipped away, leaving many feeling lost and unfulfilled. This is where the psychological toll begins to take hold. This cycle of alienation is a designed feature of this system, which keeps the worker in a state of perpetual dependence. The shift from Marx's analysis of labor alienation to its psychological consequences brings us to the work of Erich Fromm, who explored the concept of escape from freedom. Fromm argued that while people crave freedom, they also fear the responsibility and uncertainty that comes with it. This fear often leads them to choose the security of wage dependence, even if it is an unfulfilling and soul-crushing existence. Think about the countless people who remain in miserable jobs, not because they derive any joy or meaning from the work, but because they fear the uncertainty of stepping out into the unknown. This is not a character flaw. It's a very human response to the pressures of modern life. The fear of financial insecurity, the dread of losing their perceived stability, traps them in a gilded cage. They are sacrificing a part of their own potential, a part of their own souls, for the illusion of safety. They know they are living an inauthentic life, but the fear of freedom is too powerful to overcome. This is a deliberate function of the cycle of dependence. This fear of freedom directly relates to our erosion of individuality and reveals the shadow side of this whole system. Jungian psychology introduces the concept of the shadow, the hidden or repressed aspects of our personality that we often deny or project onto others. When we suppress our authentic selves to conform to societal expectations around work, these shadow aspects can find expression in negative ways, both personally and professionally. Consider how the constant pressure to conform in the workplace might lead to a split between one's true self and their work persona, where the authentic individual is hidden and a false identity is put on display each day. This inner conflict causes tension and stress, diminishing our overall energy and vitality, a draining of our very life force. This creates an internal battle, an internal struggle, where a part of ourselves is constantly being denied. This denial is a form of self-killing. It is a slow erosion of what makes you unique. This internal conflict manifests in many ways: cynicism, anger, resentment, and a general feeling of being dead inside. These are the signs of a soul starved of authenticity. The constant effort of maintaining this false persona drains our vital energy, leaving us feeling depleted and disconnected from our true selves. This is not simply a bad day. It's the sign of a system that is killing you. The psychological harm is not simply anecdotal. It is increasingly backed by data and research. The experiences of chronic stress, anxiety, and burnout are commonly reported by workers trapped in these systems. This isn't just a matter of isolated cases. These are pervasive issues across multiple industries, all of which have a devastating effect on human life. This constant state of stress is not only mentally and emotionally exhausting, but also manifests physically in the form of high blood pressure, digestive problems, insomnia, and a variety of other stress-related ailments. This is not just about feeling tired. This is about a system that is actively damaging your health. The weight of responsibility, the fear of failure, and the constant pressure to perform create a relentless cycle of anxiety and exhaustion. The system is designed to push you to your limits, and when you reach your limit, it simply replaces you with someone else. The feelings of anxiety, depression, and burnout are not signs of personal weakness. They are logical responses to an environment that is inherently unhealthy, and are therefore a clear indication that there is a problem with the system, not the worker. There is a direct and scientifically verifiable link between the modern work system and psychological harm, and this alone should create deep concern. The perpetuation of wage dependence is not accidental. It is a designed feature of economic structures. The current system is designed to keep individuals in a state of perpetual dependence, rather than providing pathways toward independence and autonomy. Think of how many people are trapped in a cycle of debt, burdened by student loans, mortgages, and credit card bills, making them feel as if they must work endlessly just to stay afloat. These debts, often acquired through a system that pushes consumerism and higher education, create a form of financial leash, binding individuals to the system. The cost of living is intentionally kept high, while wages remain stagnant, creating a gap that most people are unable to overcome. This isn't an organic economic phenomenon. It's a carefully designed system. These policies and structures create and maintain this cycle of dependence, intentionally preventing many from achieving financial freedom. They are designed to keep people working, and these are not accidental oversights. They are foundational components. This financial dependence is further reinforced by the constant drumbeat of marketing and advertising, creating a culture of endless consumerism. This culture promotes the idea that happiness and value are tied to the acquisition of material goods, constantly urging people to work more and earn more in order to consume more. We're bombarded with messages that tell us that success means having the latest gadgets, the biggest house, the most luxurious car, reinforcing the need to work in order to obtain these items. This is not about genuine happiness. It's about maintaining a system of endless production and consumption. This constant need to buy things manipulates our sense of worth, convincing people that their value is tied to what they own, rather than who they are. This manipulation of narratives creates a false sense of needing the next thing, trapping people in a cycle of work and consumption. This pattern of needing more and working more to obtain it is the key component in the erosion of individuality. It is designed to make you forget your own internal value and replace it with external things. This is the very definition of dehumanization. These economic structures and manipulative narratives ultimately serve the interests of those in power. The modern work system often prioritizes profits over worker well-being, and that is not an accident. Corporations frequently implement policies that suppress wages, limit benefits, and intensify workloads, all in the name of maximizing their profit margins. These decisions are not organic, they are calculated. They aren't merely the result of market forces. They are deliberate choices made by those who hold economic power. This system allows the powerful to take advantage of workers, paying them less than they are worth, knowing they have no other choice. This system is designed to benefit a few at the expense of the many. These structures are not a mistake, and the patterns are clear. The system needs to maintain a constant flow of labor, and therefore must do what it can to maintain the cycle of dependence. These are the hidden mechanisms designed to perpetuate the system of wage slavery. The illusion of choice is a crucial element in maintaining the system of wage dependence. The idea that we have free choice in the job market is often a myth, masking systemic constraints that limit genuine options. Social, economic, and cultural factors often dictate the available paths, creating an environment where people have little real choice. If your family is poor, your educational options may be limited. If your school is underfunded, your career prospects may be constrained. If your culture values specific jobs over others, you may be pressured to choose a certain path, not because it aligns with your own unique passions, but because it is what is expected of you. The idea that everyone has equal opportunity is a narrative that does not match the reality of most people's lives. These limiting factors reveal the lie of the free choice narrative. Many people are not choosing, but being chosen by forces beyond their control. These forces are designed to keep them in the system. This is the manipulation of narrative, and it is not an accident. The narratives we are fed from birth, such as the American dream, reinforce this myth of free choice, suggesting that hard work will always lead to success. These stories are intentionally designed to persuade you that individual effort is the sole determinant of one's destiny, regardless of the systems at play. This pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality blames individuals for their struggles, rather than looking at the systemic flaws that may be causing them. This narrative is constantly reinforced through media, marketing, and political rhetoric, convincing people that if they work hard enough they will eventually succeed, ignoring the fact that the system itself may be stacked against them. These are carefully designed stories that are repeated and reinforced in our culture. These are not organic myths, they are propaganda. This myth also reinforces the cycle of dependence, because if you are not successful, it must be your fault and not the fault of the system, which makes you work harder and harder to try to meet the unrealistic goals. This is the goal of the system. The system wants you to find value in things, not yourself, which is another facet of the erosion of individuality. When individuals do not feel free, when they do not feel like they have agency over their lives, the shadow side emerges. This is not simply a personal issue. It has broad implications for society. Repressed anger, frustration, and a sense of powerlessness can take root, manifesting as mental health issues, as well as collective unrest. When people feel like they are a cog in a machine, they start to act like one. This acting out can take many forms, from a loss of productivity and engagement to a general feeling of malaise, to even more destructive actions. This collective shadow, the sum total of the repressed feelings and experiences of countless individuals, can have serious implications for society as a whole, creating widespread instability and distrust. These are the signals of a system that is out of balance. The system is not simply killing the individual, it is also killing society. We can see the roots of much of the instability and polarization of society within this problem. It is a symptom of a system where people do not feel in control of their own lives. This is the core issue. While this may paint a grim picture, it's important to remember that there is a way out. There is a path toward breaking free from this cycle, towards reclaiming your autonomy and living an authentic life. This system has many design flaws, but that does not mean there are no solutions. There is a path out of this darkness, but it requires awareness, intention, and action. Reclaiming your life does not happen by itself. It requires effort. While the path may seem daunting, know that it is possible to regain your freedom. We have the ability to break the cycle of dependence, resist the erosion of individuality, and see through the manipulation of narratives. This is where the true work begins. Ignoring this system is not a viable option. To stay within the confines of this system is not simply a poor career decision. It is a slow, painful erosion of your essence, a path toward a diminished existence, void of joy, purpose, and authentic expression. This is not merely a matter of a bad job. It's about the very core of your existence. It is not only a physical killing, but a psychological and spiritual one as well, a stifling of your potential and a dimming of your inner light. This is why wage slavery is a killer. To ignore this is to invite a slow spiritual death. This is not a game or an intellectual exercise. This is about your life. If the system is killing you, then it must be challenged. So, if this is the current reality, then what is the solution? How do we break free from this cycle and live a life that is authentic and fulfilling? If the modern work system is designed to keep people in a state of dependence, then who are the architects of this design, and how do they maintain their power? This is where the critical analysis of Noam Chomsky becomes essential. Chomsky's work focuses on the ways in which powerful institutions, such as corporations and governments, manipulate public opinion to maintain the status quo and perpetuate economic inequalities. He argues that these institutions do not operate through explicit coercion alone, but also through the more subtle yet pervasive means of propaganda, and that these methods are a key factor in keeping people in line. This manipulation of narratives is not a new technique, but a well-established tool used throughout history to maintain power and control. Consider how in the past, religious institutions promoted the idea of a divine right of kings, convincing people that they had a moral obligation to obey their rulers, and that to question authority was to question God. These narratives were not based in truth, but rather in the need to maintain the power of the church and the monarchy, and served as a way to keep the population subservient and compliant. Similarly, we see that this is not a historical anomaly, but rather a continuous pattern, as we are constantly being bombarded by propaganda from multiple sources to maintain power structures. This is not random, but an intentional design. These institutions are using specific methods to maintain their power. This manipulation often involves the normalization of ideas that benefit those in power, even if they are harmful to the vast majority of the population. One of the most pervasive of these ideas is the notion that working hard, regardless of the conditions, is inherently virtuous, and that success is directly correlated with the amount of effort one puts in. This narrative is not organic, but manufactured through various channels, including media, education, and political systems. Think about the endless stories we've all heard of the self-made man or woman who achieved greatness through sheer willpower and determination. These narratives, while perhaps occasionally true, often fail to acknowledge the systemic factors that create inequality in the first place, ignoring the fact that many people work incredibly hard but remain trapped in poverty, while others benefit from systemic advantages. This constant promotion of hard work as a virtue is designed to shift the blame away from the system and onto individuals, ensuring that workers continue to accept their exploitation without question. This also reinforces the erosion of individuality by convincing workers they are just like everyone else, and therefore they can overcome their challenges with hard work alone. The system doesn't want you to feel unique or to question the status quo, because this would diminish its power. This is a deliberate strategy to maintain control. This manipulation also extends to the promotion of a culture of conformity and obedience to authority, both inside and outside of the workplace. From a young age, we are taught to follow rules, respect authority figures, and prioritize obedience over independent thought. These lessons, ingrained early on, carry into adulthood, making it easier for individuals to accept the often unfair conditions of the workplace. Consider how many people remain silent when they witness injustice or mistreatment at work, fearing retribution or social ostracization. This isn't simply a lack of courage, but the result of a lifetime of training to accept hierarchical structures and not question authority. This lack of questioning is exactly what the system desires. This culture of conformity not only limits individual expression, but also stifles collective action, further solidifying the power of the few at the expense of the many. The system wants you to believe that you do not have power, that your voice is meaningless, and that your role is to simply obey. This is the very essence of the system, as it reinforces the cycle of dependence that we've seen repeated throughout this presentation. The core of the system is to silence any resistance so it may maintain its power. This results in a loss of individuality, as workers begin to adopt the values and priorities of the system, losing sight of their own unique passions and desires, and therefore becoming just another cog in the machine. The result of this cycle is not simply financial or social, but psychological and spiritual as well. This is how the system is designed to work. If this is the system, then what is the result? The constant stress of being trapped in wage slavery takes a profound toll on mental health, creating a cycle of anxiety, burnout, and a deep loss of purpose. When individuals feel as if they are simply cogs in a machine, their sense of self-worth diminishes, leading to feelings of hopelessness and despair. The daily grind of monotonous work, combined with the fear of job insecurity, creates a persistent state of anxiety, where individuals feel as if they are constantly on the verge of a breakdown. This isn't merely a case of having a bad day. It's a state of chronic stress, with devastating effects on both mental and physical well-being. This is not simply anecdotal, it is backed by countless studies and data. Consider the workers in call centers, who are monitored constantly, or the factory workers, who perform the same repetitive tasks all day long, often under immense pressure. These are environments that are scientifically proven to be damaging, and yet these are the systems we continue to tolerate. These are not simply poor jobs, they are designed to be dehumanizing. This is a feature, not a bug, of the system. The system, therefore, is designed to kill the very essence of the worker. This constant pressure and this feeling of being trapped causes a buildup of repressed negative emotions, which then manifest as self-destructive behaviors and mental health challenges. Jungian psychology suggests that these repressed negative emotions, the shadow aspects of our psyche, are not to be ignored, but understood and integrated into our conscious awareness. However, the modern work system is specifically designed to suppress these shadow aspects, leading to unhealthy expressions. Think about how many people turn to substance abuse, excessive consumerism, or other destructive habits in an attempt to cope with the stress and frustration of their work lives. These are not isolated issues, but rather the result of a system that fails to acknowledge the psychological needs of its workers. The very act of going to a job you hate is an act of spiritual violence against yourself. This denial of one's authentic self and the constant suppression of negative emotions creates an internal tension that can manifest as anxiety, depression, or even physical illness. These shadow aspects, the internal angers and frustrations, are all a direct result of the system. The system's lack of empathy is a direct contributor to the negative shadow within the individual. This psychological toll is deeply intertwined with the concepts of alienation and loss of self that we discussed earlier. When people are reduced to mere cogs in a machine, they are disconnected from their authentic selves, losing sight of their unique passions and desires. This disconnection creates a deep sense of meaninglessness and despair, further reinforcing the negative mental health impacts. The system, therefore, is not only taking away your labor, but it's also taking away your spirit, your soul, your authentic self. The system is slowly killing you from the inside out. This loss of self also contributes to the erosion of individuality, because the individual does not feel a connection to the work, and therefore no connection to the value in themselves. If their value is only tied to their labor, then they start to believe that their worth is as a worker, and not as a person. This is the goal of the system. The very nature of wage slavery is designed to disconnect you from your inner life, to disconnect you from yourself, your joy, and your overall meaning. The psychological toll is a direct result of this loss of self, and it is a designed component of the system. The system wants to disconnect you from your spirit, because that is the source of your power. If the system is designed to keep people dependent, then it must convince them that they have a choice, even when they do not. The idea of free choice in the job market is one of the most pervasive illusions that maintains this cycle of wage dependence. While it may appear that we have a plethora of options, the reality is that our choices are often severely limited by economic inequalities and societal pressures. Many people feel as though they have complete control over their career paths, and yet most people find themselves trapped by circumstance. The high cost of education, the burden of student loan debt, the ever-increasing cost of basic necessities, all force individuals to take jobs that they might not want or are suited for simply to make ends meet. This isn't true choice, but rather a forced selection from a limited set of options. These economic forces create a system of forced choice, rather than genuine free choice. These systems, by design, limit one's options, thus making them all the more likely to continue to participate in the cycle of dependence. This is not freedom, but a carefully crafted cage. These choices are often the best of bad options, rather than an authentic expression of your own desires. The system is designed to make you believe you have freedom, but it is a lie. This illusion of choice is further reinforced by the constant promotion of the idea that working harder is the solution, rather than questioning the system itself. The system encourages us to believe that if we simply put in more hours, make more sacrifices, and push ourselves beyond our limits, we will eventually achieve success. This idea shifts the blame for individual failures onto the individual, rather than the systemic issues that create inequality in the first place. This is classic manipulation of narrative. We are constantly being told to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, to ignore the structures that are holding us back, and to simply try harder. This is not only misleading but actively harmful, as it discourages people from questioning the system itself or demanding better conditions. Instead, they are encouraged to blame themselves, fostering self-doubt and limiting collective action. The American dream narrative is a good example of this, as it implies that anyone can achieve success through hard work alone, but this simply isn't the case. These narratives all serve a specific purpose: to maintain the current system and to convince you that there are no alternatives. The result of these manufactured narratives is that many people feel like they are alone in their struggles, that they are the only ones who can't seem to make it in this system. This creates a sense of shame and self-blame, preventing them from recognizing that their struggles are not individual failings, but the result of systemic forces. They are made to feel like they are responsible for their own misery, which keeps them in the cycle of wage dependence. The system wants to isolate you, so you do not connect with others, and that you feel personally responsible for your own struggles. This is a carefully designed trap, designed to keep you locked within the system. This self-blame also causes the shadow aspects to flourish, resulting in internal tension, feelings of anger, and self-doubt. This is a perfect system for the powerful, as it places all the blame on the individual, even when they are suffering from a systemic problem. This is yet another facet of the manipulation of narratives, and a key way the system maintains its power. The system wants you to believe your problems are your own, and that there is nothing you can do about it. While this may seem like a hopeless situation, it's essential to remember that it is not insurmountable. There are ways to break free from this cycle and to begin to reclaim your autonomy. Although the system is incredibly powerful, it is not invulnerable. By understanding the forces at play, by seeing the patterns that keep you in a state of dependence, you will begin to see the way forward. The path ahead, while challenging, is filled with opportunities for growth and transformation. It is not a passive endeavor and will require active participation. By exploring alternative options, such as skill building, conscious consumerism, and entrepreneurship, we can begin to create a new paradigm. While these may seem like small steps, they are all necessary for breaking the cycle of wage dependence. The key to change lies in understanding the system, and by becoming aware of the various methods of manipulation, you can choose to no longer be a part of it. Awareness is the first step towards empowerment. It is the seed of change, the start of something new. What are the first steps that you can take to break free? The psychological damage inflicted by the modern work paradigm is not merely an abstract philosophical concept, but a stark and quantifiable reality. Numerous studies and data sets reveal the profound mental health toll exacted by the structures of what we have called wage slavery. For example, a comprehensive report from the World Health Organization found that workplace stress is a leading cause of depression and anxiety worldwide, with rates of these conditions significantly higher in industries characterized by low pay, high job insecurity, and limited autonomy. These are not simply isolated instances, but rather represent a widespread and systematic issue. Data from the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health shows that workers in sectors like manufacturing, healthcare, and customer service report disproportionately high levels of burnout and emotional exhaustion. These are the very sectors that keep society functioning, and yet they are often the most exploitative environments. These are not simply bad jobs, but rather environments that are designed to be physically and emotionally draining, thus leading to long-term health concerns. These statistics, often buried beneath corporate press releases and news cycles, expose the truth that this is not simply an issue of individual resilience, but rather a systemic failure to prioritize worker well-being. The numbers speak volumes about the lived experiences of countless individuals who feel trapped, undervalued, and increasingly hopeless, and that this is more than just a few bad jobs. The mental strain of this constant pressure also has a direct and devastating effect on physical health. Chronic stress, induced by long hours, low control, and a sense of being trapped in a dead-end job, is a major contributor to a variety of physical ailments. Research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association demonstrates that individuals experiencing prolonged workplace stress are significantly more prone to cardiovascular disease, including heart attacks and strokes. The constant release of stress hormones, such as cortisol, damages the cardiovascular system and weakens the immune response, making the body more susceptible to illness. Sleep disorders, another common consequence of work-related stress, further exacerbate these problems, as a lack of sleep compromises the body's ability to repair itself. These are not simply unfortunate coincidences, but direct consequences of the physical and emotional wear and tear of an exploitative system. The very structure of the current labor paradigm is designed to extract the most effort at the least cost, thereby sacrificing the health and well-being of the people that participate in it. This is not hyperbole, but a data-driven reality. These statistics bring a chilling clarity to the claim that wage dependency will kill you, as it reveals a clear and undeniable pathway from labor to death. These are not just minor side effects, but core components of a system that prioritizes profit over human life. The psychological and physical ramifications of this work paradigm are deeply intertwined with the philosophical concepts of alienation and meaninglessness. When individuals are reduced to mere cogs in the machine, performing repetitive and unfulfilling tasks, they become increasingly disconnected from their work and from themselves. The relentless focus on productivity and profit undermines any sense of purpose, leading to a profound sense of emptiness and despair. The worker becomes estranged from the product, the process, and their own humanity. In his seminal work, The Sane Society, Erich Fromm highlights how modern industrial society, with its emphasis on efficiency and production, alienates people from their true needs and desires, thus creating a pervasive sense of unease. This constant disconnection from self, from others, and from the world is not simply an unpleasant feeling, but a major factor in the decline of mental and physical health. The system is designed to create a cycle of dependence, and within this system, it becomes impossible to find real meaning, creating a state of existential despair. The numbers are not just data points. but represent countless individuals struggling with the realities of a system that has been designed to disconnect them from their own sense of purpose, their bodies, and their overall well-being. These data and philosophical frameworks work together to illustrate the profound damage caused by the current labor paradigm. The cycle of dependence that we have been exploring throughout this presentation is further solidified by the pervasive nature of debt and consumption. The high costs of essential goods, such as housing, healthcare, and education, force countless individuals into cycles of debt, making them increasingly reliant on their jobs to simply survive. In many parts of the world, housing prices are rising exponentially, while wages remain stagnant, thus making it virtually impossible for many to achieve financial security, let alone freedom. Student loan debt in many countries has created a generation of workers who are forced to take whatever jobs they can find in order to pay off their obligations. This is not a failure of the individual, but a result of an economic system that places profit above all else. Healthcare costs in many parts of the world also creates a system where an individual must choose between their health and their survival. These are not simply the result of market forces, but rather a consequence of deliberate policies that are designed to maintain a system of dependency, ensuring that the worker will remain trapped. These economic structures are designed to create an environment where people are forced to prioritize work above all else, and the result of this is a never-ending cycle of wage dependence. This is more than just difficult situations. This is a trap with no easy escape. The pressure to consume is not organic, but a carefully crafted illusion, manufactured through constant marketing and advertising campaigns. These campaigns create an insatiable desire for material possessions, perpetuating the idea that happiness and fulfillment can be found in the acquisition of more things. This idea is not accidental, but a key component of maintaining the current economic model. This engineered desire for material possessions is designed to keep people on the treadmill of wage dependence, as they are constantly working to afford the latest trends, the newest technology, or the newest car. The system is not designed to help people find inner peace or purpose, but instead to create a perpetual state of need. This relentless promotion of consumerism is a significant factor in keeping individuals trapped in cycles of debt, as they sacrifice financial freedom and personal well-being in pursuit of fleeting material pleasure. This is another example of the carefully designed manipulation of narratives that we have been examining. This is not a casual byproduct. It is an intentional system designed to keep the worker trapped and seeking external validation rather than internal fulfillment. The illusion of free choice is further eroded by these manufactured pressures, and those in power continue to encourage that these are organic expressions of freedom. This constant pressure to participate in the consumer economy, combined with the rising costs of essential goods, makes it virtually impossible for many to exercise real agency over their lives. This is not true choice, but a carefully constructed series of options, all designed to keep the individual within the bounds of the current system. The system has become incredibly effective at creating the illusion of options, while at the same time limiting any genuine pathways to financial and personal liberation. People are often told that they can become anything they want, but the economic realities of the world often make this impossible. The illusion of choice is a way for the system to shift the blame onto the individual, while obscuring the systemic issues that keep the majority of the population trapped. This is not simply a matter of a few bad choices, but rather a carefully constructed system designed to make it seem like you have freedom, when in fact, the options have been deliberately constrained. The exploitation of labor is not confined to a single region or a specific culture, but rather represents a widespread global phenomenon. Countless examples of worker mistreatment can be found all across the world, from textile factories in developing countries, where workers are often subjected to unsafe conditions and paid meager wages, to migrant farm workers in developed nations, who face inhumane treatment and are denied basic rights. These are not isolated incidents, but rather symptoms of a global economic system that prioritizes profit over the well-being of the worker. The system is specifically designed to seek out areas with weak labor laws and limited regulations, allowing corporations to exploit workers in their pursuit of profits. The very nature of international trade is designed to create these power imbalances and to take advantage of them for the benefit of a small group. This is not a simple accident, but rather a pattern that reveals a deep and systemic flaw in the structure of the global economy. This global perspective helps one understand that this isn't a case of a few bad apples, but rather a rotten tree with deep and well-established roots. Many multinational corporations have become incredibly effective at shifting production to countries with lower wages and lax labor laws, further reinforcing the claim that maximizing profit is the primary goal, rather than treating workers with dignity and respect. These companies are not simply following the market, they are actively constructing it in ways that allow them to continue exploiting workers for their own benefit. This is not only confined to manufacturing, but also extends to the tech industry, the food industry, and the service industry. These systems of exploitation are not contained within the borders of any single country, but instead operate on a global scale. This reveals the nature of what we've been calling wage slavery, and that its tendrils reach into all aspects of the globe. This is a worldwide issue, not a localized concern, and that the impacts of this exploitation are global. The individuals who are being exploited are not simply numbers, but real people with families, hopes, and dreams who are all being sacrificed at the altar of profit. The alienation experienced by workers is a global phenomenon as well, as individuals around the world are increasingly disconnected from the products that they are producing and the communities they are supporting. The highly specialized nature of modern production means that many workers have very little insight into the value of their labor or the impact of their work. This has the effect of diminishing a sense of value, worth, and personal contribution. This disconnection leads to a sense of meaninglessness, as workers are reduced to mere cogs in a global machine, producing goods for consumers they will never meet, and for purposes they may not even understand. The system has been designed to create an environment where the worker is disconnected from their work, from their community, and from their sense of value. This global perspective further reinforces the philosophical claims of alienation, showing that it is not a byproduct of capitalism, but a carefully designed component of the current economic model. The result is a system that has been specifically engineered to keep people disconnected, and therefore easier to control. Noam Chomsky's critique of corporate power is critical for understanding how these forces are maintained, and how they actively manipulate narratives to obscure the reality of exploitation. Corporations are masters of public relations and are constantly working to construct images of themselves as benevolent corporate citizens, even while they are actively engaged in practices that harm their workers. This is not a new strategy, but a key component of how power maintains its control. These corporations spend massive amounts of money on advertising, marketing, and public relations, all with the goal of presenting a carefully crafted image to the public, obscuring their unethical practices behind a veneer of social responsibility. The public often has no idea about the inner workings of these companies, as they are only presented with the curated version designed to keep people feeling as though they are participating in a good system. This is not simply a matter of misleading marketing, but a carefully crafted campaign designed to keep people unaware of the inner workings of the system. These corporations also exert immense influence over political policies, and they actively lobby for legislation that favors their interests, often at the expense of workers' rights and public safety. This is not speculation, but a well-documented reality. Corporations use their financial power to influence politicians, donate to campaigns, and actively work against any legislation that might threaten their profits. This results in a system that is inherently rigged in favor of corporations and works to further limit the options for the worker. This active manipulation of political power solidifies their position and keeps the cycle of wage dependence in motion. This is not a matter of a few bad politicians, but the result of a systemic structure that has been designed to favor corporations. This manipulation of political power is not accidental, but rather a deliberate action taken by the powerful to maintain their control. The result of this manipulation is a system where workers are trapped, with few viable options, and forced to participate in conditions that erode their well-being. The corporations are effectively creating the choices that benefit them rather than the worker, which further solidifies that true freedom is simply an illusion. The system has become increasingly effective at creating the illusion of a free market, while simultaneously limiting any genuine pathways to liberation. The vast power of corporations, combined with the constant manipulation of political policy and public perception, creates an environment where true agency is almost impossible to achieve. These manufactured options are simply a means of controlling the worker, while creating the appearance that they are making their own choices. This is not a system that offers genuine freedom, but rather a carefully constructed illusion of choice, designed to maintain control. This cycle perpetuates and reinforces the power structures, keeping the individuals trapped and powerless. The very structure of this system also stifles creativity, self-expression, and personal purpose. The repetitive nature of modern labor, combined with the pressure to conform, often leaves very little room for individual expression and authentic self-discovery. Many workers are forced to suppress their unique passions and talents in favor of the demands of their employers. This is not an accidental byproduct, but the very design of the system, which prefers conformity and obedience over the expression of individuality. This lack of opportunity for self-expression can be incredibly damaging, as it causes many to feel a deep sense of emptiness and frustration. These repressed emotions and desires can then manifest as internal conflict, anger, and a general feeling of unrest. This stifling of creativity is a form of killing the spirit, slowly eroding the very essence of who someone is. This is not just an inconvenience, but a profound personal loss for the individual. Many individuals also feel a deep disconnect between the work they do and their personal values, and that they are not using their gifts, talents, and skills to contribute to the world. This is not a personal failure, but a consequence of a system that prioritizes profit over purpose, and which has little regard for the well-being of the worker. When work feels meaningless, it causes an individual to feel disconnected from their own value and from their own sense of contribution to the world. This disconnect further exacerbates the feelings of alienation, hopelessness, and despair, creating a cycle that can be very difficult to escape. The system effectively disconnects individuals from their inner calling and their genuine purpose, keeping them trapped in a cycle of meaningless labor. This erosion of purpose is not simply a byproduct of the system, but rather another designed component of the overall structure of wage slavery. This is a form of soul killing, an internal and spiritual death. This loss of purpose and creative expression often makes one feel as if they are not truly alive, but rather existing in a state of perpetual stagnation, where the spirit is slowly being eroded. This sense of deadness is not a philosophical concept, but a lived experience for countless individuals who feel as though they are trapped in a life that they did not choose, and with no opportunity to express their authentic selves. This is not simply a matter of dissatisfaction, but a profound loss of vitality, and a deep sense that life is somehow passing one by. The system has been specifically engineered to create an environment where the individual feels disconnected, meaningless, and not truly alive. The very nature of wage slavery is to slowly strip away the essential components of what makes us human: our creativity, our purpose, and our unique form of self-expression. The suppression of these essential elements creates a feeling of being trapped in a deadened state, where one's spirit is slowly being eroded, and the promise of a full life is never fulfilled. The effects of wage dependency extend beyond the individual, creating a collective shadow that impacts all aspects of society. The collective frustration and resentment caused by these inequities can manifest as social unrest, political polarization, and a general feeling of malaise. These widespread social issues are not simply isolated incidents, but symptoms of a much deeper systemic problem. The system has become so effective at maintaining its power that the collective frustration of its effects can often go unseen. The constant pressure and this feeling of being trapped can lead to social unrest, but this social unrest is often misunderstood and blamed on other factors. These are not organic problems, but rather a collective shadow of the system, and they can manifest in ways that may not be immediately apparent. These systemic issues are often framed as individual failings or personality flaws, rather than as symptoms of a flawed system, and that this is yet another example of the manipulation of narratives we have explored throughout this presentation. The system actively works to obscure the true causes of these issues by shifting blame onto individuals. This is not accidental, but a deliberate tactic used to prevent people from recognizing the systemic roots of their challenges. When people feel like they are personally responsible for their problems, it becomes much harder to organize collectively and to demand change. This is a system designed to divide and to isolate and to prevent individuals from recognizing their collective power. This strategy is a key component of how the power structures remain in place. These systemic problems make it harder for people to find common ground, as they are forced to focus on self-preservation, thus further eroding the potential for collective action. The system wants you to believe that you are on your own, and that your struggles are unique, and that you cannot work with others to demand change. This creates an environment of competition and division, making it much harder for people to come together to solve these problems, which has been the goal of the system all along. This is far more than a system of work, but rather a system that touches every aspect of human life, thus creating a system of dependency and control that erodes the potential of all. It's not simply about work, but a structural force that is reshaping the very fabric of our societies. It is a system that benefits the powerful and disempowers the powerless. The stakes could not be higher. Wage slavery is not just a matter of economic policy, but rather a fundamental issue that impacts our physical and mental health, our spirit, our overall sense of purpose, and our connection to our community. Ignoring this issue and hoping that it will simply resolve itself will have dire consequences for our individual and collective potential. The current system is unsustainable, and if we continue on this path, the very fabric of society will be irrevocably damaged. This system is more than just a bad deal. It is a design that keeps the majority of people trapped in a system that slowly destroys them. While these problems may seem insurmountable and the forces at play incredibly powerful, the potential for change still remains. By understanding the mechanics of this system, by recognizing the carefully designed patterns that keep us in a state of dependency, and by working collectively, we may yet find a way to create a more humane and equitable world. What steps can we take to regain our freedom and break free from this cycle? The question then becomes, what steps can we take to reclaim our agency and break free from this cycle? The path towards liberation begins with empowering ourselves through skill building, developing abilities that are not easily commodified by the system. This is not about simply securing a better job within the existing framework, but rather cultivating capacities that grant us greater autonomy and control. When we develop skills that are in demand yet not easily automated, we are not only expanding our options, but reclaiming a sense of self-efficacy, a vital component in the process of empowerment. Consider the rapidly evolving field of digital marketing, where expertise in social media management, content creation, and search engine optimization, can provide individuals with the means to create their own businesses or offer their services to a wide variety of clients. Or take specialized trades, such as plumbing, electrical work, or carpentry, where hands-on skills and technical knowledge offer unique value in the market that cannot be easily outsourced or replicated by machines. These are not just job skills, but tools for liberation, means of generating income that are not dependent on the whims of corporations, and a pathway out of wage dependency. The very act of acquiring these unique skill sets begins to dissolve the sense of powerlessness that has become so common in our current labor structure, and allows for a more robust sense of individual value and capability. This development of unique and valuable skills paves the way for entrepreneurship, an alternative path that offers a greater degree of autonomy and control over one's economic destiny. This path, while certainly not free from challenges, provides individuals with the chance to create their own economic structures and define their own terms of engagement with the market. This is not a simple solution, nor is it a guaranteed path to success, but it does offer the possibility of aligning one's work with one's personal values, and to cultivate a sense of purpose that is often absent in traditional employment. Starting a small business, whether it is an online retail store, a local service offering, or a creative endeavor, allows for a direct connection between one's efforts and the value they are generating. For example, consider the growth of independent artists, creators, and writers, who, through the use of platforms like Patreon, Etsy, and Substack, have built their own economies, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers and creating direct connections with their audiences. Or consider the small business owner who has taken their passion and transformed it into a viable way to generate income, providing jobs for others in their community. This path is not a guarantee of wealth, but it is a declaration of personal freedom, a way to bring back that sense of inner power and individual identity, a direct response to the systemic erosion of self that we've been discussing. This is not just about the money, but about regaining a sense of agency, choice, and control. These individual strategies are not merely about seeking better jobs or earning more money, but about creating a long-term exit strategy from the cycle of wage dependence. This is a process of reclaiming your time, your energy, and your life, making these steps a crucial element in the liberation process. Developing these skills and launching your own ventures takes patience, dedication, and a willingness to learn, but it is a pathway towards financial independence and a future that is not controlled by external forces. This is about moving from a state of forced labor to a state of empowered self-determination. This is a process that requires us to reimagine our relationship to work, not simply as a means to an end, but as a vehicle for self-expression, purpose, and meaning. The path towards liberation is long and challenging, but every step in this direction brings you closer to a life of your own design and further from the limitations of the system. This is the beginning of a journey towards reclaiming agency and breaking free from the pervasive dependency. This is not just about changing jobs, but about changing your entire way of being. Beyond individual strategies, another vital element of resistance comes from conscious consumerism, which involves making deliberate choices about what we purchase and support. This is about recognizing the power of the dollar and using it as a form of protest, a way of voting with our money for the kind of world we wish to see. By being mindful about our spending, we can diminish our participation in exploitative systems and start supporting companies and organizations that align with our values. This is how we move from being passive participants in a flawed system to being active agents of change, and a key element in dissolving the manipulative narratives we've discussed throughout this presentation. For example, we can choose to buy from local businesses, thus supporting the local economy and reducing our reliance on large multinational corporations that prioritize profit over people. We can also make purchasing decisions that reflect a commitment to environmental sustainability by buying goods that are sustainably sourced and ethically produced. This kind of conscious choice has a profound effect, shifting power away from the systems that cause harm and towards more ethical and responsible options. The power of choice is not an illusion, but an actual force we can use to redesign our relationship to the market and to the world around us. Coupled with conscious consumerism, financial responsibility is another essential aspect of breaking free from the cycle of dependence. Managing debt and diligently saving money can create more flexibility and autonomy, giving one the power to make different life choices. This is about taking back control of our finances from the clutches of the system and building a solid foundation for true independence. Reducing unnecessary expenses, paying off debts, and creating a substantial savings account are practical steps that can dramatically increase personal power and open up pathways to more freedom and more options. This is not about accumulating wealth for its own sake, but about creating the means to live a life that is aligned with one's values and free from the constraints of financial insecurity. This is about understanding that financial security is not just a means to an end, but the key to unlocking genuine agency, allowing us to make more choices and break free from the bonds of wage dependency. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but a steady and sustainable method for creating more flexibility, more options, and a more empowered position in a world that does not often prioritize the needs of the individual. When these ideas of conscious consumerism and financial responsibility are deeply embraced, they naturally lead to a life of greater purpose, a life that is less concerned with material possessions and more focused on inner fulfillment. When we live a life guided by authentic values, the need to consume diminishes, and the desire to purchase things for status or to keep up with trends fades away. This is a vital aspect of reclaiming your individuality, making choices based on your own values, rather than the values that are imposed on you by the consumer culture. These are not merely financial strategies, but fundamental ways to reshape your relationship to the world and to reconnect with your inner compass. The erosion of individuality we've discussed is minimized when our choices are guided by values, rather than by external pressures and narratives, giving us more agency and more power in creating lives that are filled with meaning, purpose, and authentic self-expression. This brings us out of the endless cycle of chasing material goods and towards a life of more substance and more genuine satisfaction. This is a step towards freedom that will reverberate through your life in many ways. This journey of personal empowerment must also involve collective action, a recognition that we are not alone in this struggle, and that together we have more power. Unionization is a key strategy for workers to gain collective power in the workplace, allowing them to negotiate for better wages, working conditions, and greater security. When workers unite, they can create a much stronger voice and actively push back against the power structures of the system. This is not just a historical artifact, but a viable path forward that can give workers more control over their lives. Unions are not a perfect solution, but they offer a much-needed counterbalance to the immense power of corporations, providing workers with a tool to fight back and demand fair treatment. This isn't about radicalism. It's about fairness, about recognizing that workers are not merely expendable resources, but valuable contributors to the economic system. This is one way to actively challenge the structures that often leave the worker with no agency or power, and a key tool in Chomsky's analysis of power structures and the need to organize to push back. This is more than just a political strategy, but a basic way for people to come together and demand to be treated with basic dignity and respect. Furthermore, community building is a vital aspect of creating this form of mutual support, recognizing that these struggles are shared by many, and that working together can provide a form of resilience and strength. This idea pushes back against the sense of isolation that the system often creates by fostering genuine connections and creating a sense of shared struggle and collective purpose. These are not isolated incidents, but common experiences, and that when people recognize that they are not alone, it creates a profound shift in mindset. When individuals are connected and supported, they are far less likely to feel helpless and more likely to take action. The challenges we face are not individual failures, but systemic problems, and that working together is an essential component of creating real and lasting change. These communities provide not just mutual support, but also a sense of shared purpose and a place to discuss these challenges openly. This act of connection creates resilience and is an effective means of dissolving the collective shadow that stems from this systematic approach to creating individual helplessness and isolation. This is a vital part of our transformation process, the idea that connection and mutual support are the path towards liberation. When people come together, their collective power can create an environment where these systemic issues can be openly discussed, thus minimizing the power of the manipulation of narratives. An informed population is more resistant to propaganda and misinformation, and a community that openly discusses these challenges will be more resilient to the lies and distortions that are used to maintain the status quo. The system is designed to keep us divided and isolated, which is how it maintains its power, so these actions of community building and collective action are a vital component of change. This is a direct challenge to the system, an assertion that we are not passive participants, but active agents of our own liberation. The more informed and connected a population is, the harder it becomes to control them. This is an important step, empowering the population and limiting the ability of the system to manipulate the narratives and maintain control. An organized and aware population is a threat to those in power, and that is a sign of positive and meaningful progress. Finally, alternative economic models, like worker cooperatives and local economies, offer practical ways to move beyond the exploitative structures of traditional capitalism. These models prioritize people and community over profit, creating more equitable and sustainable ways of organizing labor and resources. These are not just theoretical ideas, but rather existing models that have proven themselves to be viable alternatives. The worker coup model, where workers are also the owners of the company, makes it so they share in the success of their labor, and they are not simply exploited for the benefit of someone else. This is a radical shift from the traditional structures of capitalism, putting the power back in the hands of the workers, rather than a select few at the top. These models are not perfect, but they demonstrate the very real possibility of organizing economies around principles of fairness, sustainability, and community well-being. These are not just ideas for a far-off future, but tangible options that are worth exploring today. Local economies, another pathway toward resistance, create more resilience and autonomy as they reduce dependency on the globalized systems that often contribute to exploitation. When communities prioritize local businesses, farms, and coops, it keeps money within the community and builds more robust support systems. This also has the effect of minimizing the power of multinational corporations, while supporting the local community with more ethical and sustainable options. This kind of localism is a practical way to counteract the often destructive forces of global capitalism and to rebuild a relationship with your community, with your neighbors, and with the people you depend upon for your survival. This move away from the globalized economy is a move towards sustainability, community, and a more ethical and humane approach to creating wealth and value. This model also counters the cycle of dependence, as it creates more sustainable ways to support the local community. This local approach also empowers individuals to be more personally engaged in the health of their community and their local economy. These alternative economies often value the unique skills and talents of each individual, providing a greater sense of purpose and connection to the community. In these systems, the individual is not reduced to a mere cog in a machine, but rather seen as a valued member of the collective. This has the direct effect of diminishing the erosion of individuality by allowing people to express their creativity and to contribute to their community in meaningful ways. When we are part of a smaller and more intimate economy, it is much harder to lose sight of the individual or to view their contributions as simply a means to an end. In this environment, individuals are seen as an integral part of a larger whole, and the health of the community is directly tied to the well-being of the individual. This creates an environment where the shadow can be minimized, as connection and community bring more of the unconscious into the light. These models offer a powerful way to create a more humane and more sustainable system, one that is built upon the principles of fairness, sustainability, and deep respect for the unique gifts that each individual has to offer. These ideas offer a radical shift, but also demonstrate that another world is possible. Breaking free from wage slavery is not simply an economic or political endeavor, but a process that requires a profound personal transformation. It requires a willingness to step outside of one's comfort zone and to embrace the discomfort that inevitably accompanies growth and change. The system wants us to believe that security is found in conformity and obedience, but true freedom is found on the path of challenging the status quo. This is not an easy path, and it will require us to confront our fears, question our assumptions, and challenge our preconceived notions about work, success, and meaning. This journey is not for the faint of heart, but the potential rewards are more than worth the effort. It is not simply about changing the external circumstances of our lives, but about reshaping our internal landscape. This is the path towards true liberation, a path that will demand your courage, your resilience, and your unwavering commitment to yourself and to your own freedom. This journey requires a deep level of personal transformation as much as a change in external circumstance. The path towards this freedom is not solely about external action, but a personal and spiritual journey that transforms the way we see ourselves, our values, and the meaning of our lives. This is a journey of self-discovery and the path to an authentic way of being, and a shift from a life of conformity to a life that is true to oneself. This is not simply about material gain, but about personal and spiritual growth and a process of becoming fully alive. It will require the integration of the shadow, a willingness to look within and to embrace our imperfections and vulnerabilities, because it is in these moments that we find our true strength. This journey will force us to face all the parts of ourselves that we have long ignored or repressed, and in these moments, we have the opportunity to integrate, heal, and become more whole. This is not just about getting a better life. It is about becoming a better version of yourself. This journey is not only about external freedom, but the internal liberation of the human spirit, and about embracing the full potential of who you are. The true fulfillment that we seek does not come from following societal dictates or by conforming to the expectations of others, but by taking the harder path towards an authentic and meaningful life. Wage slavery, in its core, slowly kills the spirit and the soul, stripping individuals of their inner value, purpose, and potential. The path that we are discussing here is about reclaiming that lost self and becoming more fully human, which is the most potent form of spiritual liberation. This is not about escaping reality, but about embracing it fully with all of its complexities and challenges. This is the path towards a life of meaning, authenticity, and true freedom, a life that is not dictated by external forces, but rather guided by our inner compass. The idea of loss of self is the fundamental tragedy of wage slavery, and these solutions are not simply about income or opportunity, but about coming back to life. This path is not easy, but it is the path that leads to your true destiny, your authentic power, and your full potential. This is the journey towards true liberation, an act of courage, rebellion, and a way to make life meaningful. Even though the challenges we face are daunting, it is essential to remember that we are not powerless in the face of these systemic issues. Every small step taken towards freedom, every action that challenges the system, contributes to a larger movement of change. These actions, when combined over time, can create profound transformation. This journey is not about perfection, but progress. It is about recognizing our own power and using it every day to move closer to our goals. This is the central tenet of true empowerment, the understanding that we are not simply passive victims, but rather active agents of our own destinies. These small acts will compound over time, and what might seem like a minor change today can have a profound and lasting impact in the long run. This is not just about personal liberation, but a way to actively reshape the world around us. This belief in the power of small steps is the fuel for sustained action and real change. The very system we are working to dismantle profits from our belief in our own powerlessness. They want us to think that we cannot change things, but recognizing this tactic is key to our liberation. The system is designed to create the illusion of helplessness, and when we understand that this is a carefully designed strategy, we are already one step closer to freedom. The system is designed to make us feel small, isolated, and insignificant, but when we recognize this for the lie that it is, then it loses much of its power over us. This is not just about changing the system, but also about changing our relationship to it, and that begins with awareness. We have the power to challenge the narratives, to expose the manipulation, and to reclaim our own agency. The greatest trick the system ever played was convincing us that we had no power, and once we realize this, the game is already changing. Breaking free from wage slavery is not simply a financial endeavor, but about becoming more fully alive and more fully human, and that this is a type of spiritual liberation that counteracts the killing aspects of wage slavery. When we engage in activities that bring us closer to our authentic selves, we are also moving further away from the system's grip and closer to true freedom. The ideas we've explored here are not just theoretical constructs, but practical tools that can be used to transform your life and transform the world around you. The path ahead is long and winding, but the promise of liberation is well worth the effort. These ideas are not simply abstractions, but real forces that can be used to change our internal state and change our external reality. We are setting the stage for the final steps of this journey, which will reveal the very practical implications of what we have explored so far and will empower us to take further action. What will be the ultimate revelation in understanding these ideas? Imagine the path you were told to walk, the career you were supposed to pursue, the life you were encouraged to build. Does it truly reflect your deepest desires, or is it a carefully constructed framework designed to keep you within the system? The hidden cost of conforming to societal work norms is far more profound than many realize. What appears to be a series of free choices, such as selecting a major in college, accepting a job offer, or climbing the corporate ladder, are often predetermined paths designed to steer individuals into roles that perpetuate the existing economic structure. Consider the pressure placed on young people to pursue degrees in fields deemed practical or stable, often at the expense of their true passions and creative potential. This is not about making a bad decision. It's about the system being designed to funnel people into predetermined roles. How many artists, musicians, writers, and innovators have been told to set aside their dreams for a more realistic career path, becoming accountants, lawyers, or managers, only to find themselves unfulfilled and yearning for something more? This pattern of conformity is a design choice of the system and an effective strategy for eroding individuality. The creative spark that once burned brightly within them is slowly extinguished by the mundane demands of a system designed for conformity. This process of being pushed into predetermined paths leads to a slow and insidious loss of self, as the individual's true identity is slowly buried beneath layers of expectation and external pressure, causing many to wonder, what was my life supposed to be? This suppression of individuality manifests in many forms, often appearing as a deep sense of loss and unfulfilled potential. Think of the countless individuals who feel trapped in jobs that offer little meaning or purpose, their talents and passions stagnating beneath the weight of routine and monotony. How many gifted musicians are stuck in call centers, their artistic souls longing for expression? How many brilliant writers are confined to spreadsheets, their creative voices silenced by corporate jargon? These are not just isolated incidents of people making bad choices, but rather systemic trends of a system designed to prioritize conformity over the unique potential of every human being. This erosion of individuality is a direct consequence of a system that values productivity and efficiency above all else, often at the expense of personal growth and self-expression. This suppression is not accidental, but rather a functional part of the system, ensuring that individuals remain obedient and productive, not pursuing their authentic purpose. This results in a deep sense of dissatisfaction, a lingering feeling that something vital is missing, a soul-deep yearning for a life that is more connected to their unique gifts and more in line with their authentic self. This feeling of being lost and unfulfilled is a direct consequence of being forced to conform. Is it any wonder that so many people feel lost, disoriented, and purposeless? This loss of personal expression and purpose is not merely an abstract concept, but a significant contributor to the psychological toll of wage slavery. When individuals are forced to conform to roles that do not align with their inner values, it leads to profound feelings of meaninglessness, despair, and even a sense of soul death. The constant pressure to suppress one's true self, combined with the lack of autonomy and control in the workplace, creates a breeding ground for chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. This is more than just unhappiness, but a form of psychological and spiritual corrosion. How many people are slowly wilting under the weight of meaningless work, their lives gradually fading into a gray, uneventful existence? This is the hidden cost of conformity, the erosion of the individual spirit, and the slow but certain extinguishing of their inner fire, a process that can be just as deadly as any physical illness. When the system is designed to slowly kill your soul, it has a direct and profound impact on your health. This is why the system must be challenged, and that the path forward must begin with a deep understanding of the systems that are designed to control you. And that control is not limited to the workplace. The modern work system is not simply a means of generating productivity, but also functions as a tool for societal control, a carefully designed mechanism to maintain power structures and keep people in line. This may sound like a conspiracy theory, but a deeper examination of how corporations, governments, and the media interact reveals a system designed for control. How else can we explain the relentless promotion of a work-centric culture, where individuals are measured by their output and their net worth, rather than by their inherent human qualities? It is essential to see that this control is not always overt or obvious, but rather subtly baked into the very fabric of our social structures and institutions. Think about the way work hours are structured, often demanding long and inflexible days, leaving very little time for personal growth, self-reflection, or authentic connection. Think about the company policies that often prioritize corporate interests above the well-being of their workers, creating a climate of fear and dependence. This is not merely about maximizing profits, but a system designed to maintain control over the working population. It is a way of keeping people busy, tired, and focused on the needs of their job, instead of focused on questioning the system itself, or on pursuing their individual desires. This is a long-term strategy to keep individuals from seeking liberation. Powerful institutions often manipulate these work structures and narratives, further solidifying the cycle of dependence and solidifying their control. Consider the way large corporations use propaganda through advertising, media, and public relations to promote the idea that happiness is found in consumption and that hard work and productivity are the keys to success. This is how they get you to buy into their system, and it's all part of a carefully designed narrative. These narratives are not simply harmless marketing strategies, but a systematic manipulation of our deepest desires and aspirations. The media, often owned or influenced by powerful corporations, reinforces these messages, creating an echo chamber where dissenting voices are drowned out by the relentless promotion of consumerism and the work ethic. This is the manipulation of narratives we've been exploring, a carefully orchestrated effort to control the way people think, the way they behave, and the way they view their place in the world. It is not enough to simply work hard. You must also buy what the system sells, and both are essential in their plan to keep you working and consuming for the benefit of the system itself. How can any individual break free when all the messages they are receiving are designed to keep them trapped within the system? This system of control is deeply interconnected to the cycle of dependence, creating a vicious circle where people are increasingly reliant on their wages, making them far less likely to question the system. When individuals are constantly worried about making ends meet, they are far less likely to challenge the status quo. The pressure to provide for their families, to pay their bills, and to maintain their place in society makes it very difficult to step back and ask critical questions. The more dependent one becomes on wages, the more difficult it is to imagine an alternative. Debt, a common tool used by these systems, is especially effective at trapping people within this cycle. Mortgages, student loans, credit card debt, these all create a powerful sense of obligation, a feeling that they must work harder to pay off what they owe, creating a cycle of dependence that is very difficult to break. This creates a situation where individuals are so busy working to stay afloat, they have little time or energy to address the systemic issues that are keeping them trapped. This is not an accident, but rather a carefully designed strategy to maintain control and to prevent any real challenge to the system itself. The cycle of dependence is not a flaw, but a feature of the system designed to keep you in line. Recognizing the immense difficulty of breaking free from these deeply entrenched systems is essential as we begin to look at pathways toward liberation. It would be a disservice to the challenges if we glossed over the profound systemic barriers and the multitude of obstacles that individuals face when attempting to create autonomy. Economic inequalities, social structures, and the power of large corporations often seem like insurmountable hurdles for those seeking to break free from wage dependence. For example, starting a small business requires capital, resources, and time, all of which are often limited for those already struggling to make ends meet. The constant pressure of debt or lack of opportunity can make the idea of breaking free seem like an impossible dream. The system itself often seems designed to keep people trapped, preventing any real avenue for progress or change. This is a difficult truth to face, that the systems are designed to prevent your freedom. Yet, despite the formidable challenges, it is critical to recognize that individual agency still exists, and that small, intentional steps can create meaningful change over time. Even in the face of these daunting obstacles, there remains a powerful capacity for individual action and collective change. The key is to realize that even though these barriers are real and significant, they are not impenetrable. It is essential to shift your mindset from one of helplessness to one of empowerment, to recognize that while the road ahead is long and arduous, it is not impossible. This is not a naive optimism, but a recognition that throughout history, people have faced seemingly insurmountable challenges, and through resilience, courage, and community, have created remarkable shifts in the very structure of society. The civil rights movement, the labor movement, and other forms of social justice advocacy show that when people unite and stand up for what they believe, real change is possible. This is not just about changing the system, but about creating a new way of being, a shift from a culture of dependence to one of empowerment. This is the key to shift your perspective and reclaim your power. The systems that are in place are certainly designed for control, but understanding how the system works is the very first step in disarming its power over you. Self-awareness and critical thinking become the most valuable tools that we have in our struggle for freedom. It is essential to recognize the way these systems operate and how they are designed to keep people in line. This understanding is not a passive observation, but rather a powerful catalyst for change. Self-awareness is the first key to unlocking your own power, the ability to step back and see the influence of the system on your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This is a practice of introspection and the ability to see where the system is affecting you and making it possible to make more intentional choices. This shift in awareness opens up new pathways, new possibilities, and new ways of being. This recognition is not a passive observation, but the very first step to creating real and lasting change, and the key to understanding the ways that this system is controlling you. Self-awareness is a potent tool, allowing us to observe the ways that the system shapes our thoughts and behaviors. Through practices like meditation, journaling, or simply taking time for quiet introspection, we can begin to see how these external forces are affecting us, allowing us to disarm them. This requires an honest self-examination, a willingness to look at our own shadow, the parts of ourselves that we might not like or that have been suppressed by external pressures. It is in this process of self-discovery that we gain a deeper understanding of the ways the system seeks to control us. By seeing these systems for what they really are, we can take the first steps in breaking free from the automatic responses that keep us trapped in the cycle. This process of introspection is not easy, but it is the necessary first step to becoming truly free. Once we can see the mechanisms of control, we begin to understand that these forces are not as invincible as they once seemed. This awareness is the first step on the path towards genuine autonomy. When we combine self-awareness with critical thinking, we acquire the ability to deconstruct the manipulative narratives and propaganda that the system uses to maintain control. This is not simply about questioning the system, but about developing the capacity to evaluate all the information that comes our way. This is about cultivating a healthy skepticism towards the dominant narratives and a willingness to ask difficult questions. Instead of blindly accepting what we are told, we must develop the ability to look at the evidence, to consider different points of view, and to analyze the underlying motives of those who are presenting the information. This process of questioning and analysis becomes a powerful tool for exposing the distortions and manipulations that are used to keep people in line. This ability to see through the illusions of the system is the key to dissolving their power. When you understand that you are being manipulated, it loses its effectiveness. This ability to think critically is particularly important in our current information age, where we are bombarded with a constant stream of carefully crafted narratives designed to manipulate us. By learning to identify the propaganda techniques, we can become far more resistant to the misinformation. This skill of analysis is a bulwark against the power of the system, creating a sense of internal agency and paving the path toward true liberation. This is how a more informed and aware population becomes more resistant to manipulation and control. Self-awareness allows us to disarm the influence the system has on us, and critical thinking allows us to dissolve the false narratives that are holding us back. When people see the system for what it really is, it loses its power. This is the beginning of true empowerment. What is it that we are truly valuing when we are stuck in this cycle of wage dependence? The relentless pursuit of more, the constant yearning for the next purchase, the never-ending cycle of desire. This is not an accident, but a core mechanism of wage slavery designed to keep you working and consuming. This system thrives on creating perpetual dissatisfaction, using marketing, media, and cultural norms to manufacture needs, thus maintaining a constant state of dependence. Imagine the latest smartphone, the designer clothes, the luxury car. These items are not presented as simple goods, but as symbols of status, achievement, and personal worth. Yet, how many of these items do we truly need? How many of these desires were genuinely our own? Marketing preys on your deepest insecurities and desires, creating a constant hunger for more, using carefully crafted messaging and psychological techniques to create a sense of lack that can only be filled by buying more things, thus further perpetuating the need to work. Consider the glossy advertisements that promise happiness, success, and fulfillment, all through the acquisition of material goods. These ads are designed to create an emotional response, not a rational one, using aspirational imagery, social pressure, and the fear of missing out to drive consumption. Marketers understand that human desire is not based on logic, but on emotions, which is why they tap into your deepest insecurities, your longing for belonging, your need for validation, and then present their products as the solution. This constant bombardment of messaging creates a sense of inadequacy, a feeling that you are not enough unless you acquire the latest, must-have item. This fuels the cycle of consumption as individuals work harder and longer to buy things they don't actually need, further reinforcing their dependence on the system. The cycle of dependence is not an accident, it's a design. This constant pursuit of material goods is not merely an economic phenomenon, it's also a powerful means of control. By framing success as the accumulation of material wealth, the system subtly shifts your focus away from inner peace, authentic relationships, and a meaningful purpose. Consider the way that society often equates success with a large salary, a fancy car, a big house, or a corner office. These external markers of achievement are often presented as the ultimate goals, causing many to sacrifice their well-being, their values, and their authentic selves to achieve these shallow standards. This is where the erosion of individuality becomes so apparent, as the system actively distracts you from the true path of self-discovery, keeping you focused on external validation. The system doesn't want you to be content, because a content person is not a good consumer. The relentless pursuit of more keeps individuals in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction, constantly chasing after the next thing, never truly feeling fulfilled. This keeps people working and contributing to a system that benefits a select few at the expense of the many. This manufactured desire not only fuels the economy, but also solidifies the dependence on work, creating a system where individuals are trapped in a never-ending cycle of wanting and needing. The goalposts of success are always being moved further away, keeping you in a constant state of striving, and therefore easier to control. The lack of real fulfillment creates a deep sense of being trapped. What would happen if we stopped chasing the illusion and began to look inward for our deepest sense of purpose? The creation of perpetual dissatisfaction is a deliberate strategy to maintain control. It's not just about profits, but also about keeping you in a constant state of desire. When people are constantly focused on acquiring more things, they are far less likely to question the system that is driving this desire. This constant yearning keeps individuals busy, distracted, and perpetually chasing an illusion of happiness that is always just out of reach. Think about the emotional energy that is poured into achieving a higher salary or buying a bigger house, and then compare that to the time spent pursuing self-reflection, personal growth, or contributing to the community. The system wants you to prioritize the former, because it is only when you are disconnected from yourself that the system can exert real control over your desires. By constantly moving the goalpost of success, the system ensures that you will never feel content, which leads to a greater dependence on working to fill the void. The system does not want you to be self-sufficient, because a self-sufficient person does not need to work within the system. The lack of authentic purpose is designed to create a spiritual void that then gets filled with the false promises of material consumption. This is not just an economic model, but a form of psychological manipulation, a way of controlling people's desires and aspirations, which is a strategy used to keep you dependent on the system for their benefit and not your own. What would happen if we chose to focus on authentic purpose and inner fulfillment? The path of liberation requires a shift in focus, moving away from external validation and towards inner transformation. This is where the inner work, becomes a critical element in breaking free from the cycle of wage slavery. This journey requires facing your own shadow, acknowledging the root causes of your dependencies, and beginning a conscious effort to transform these patterns from the inside out. Practices like journaling, meditation, therapy, or any form of self-inquiry are vital tools for this process, enabling you to observe your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors with greater awareness. These inner practices are not a luxury, but a necessity for those seeking to understand themselves and break free from the conditioning of the system. It is through this process that you begin to realize how much of your identity has been shaped by external forces, and that your authentic self has been hidden beneath layers of expectation and cultural programming. It is in this space of introspection that you can begin to reclaim your individual autonomy, not through external rebellion, but through internal transformation. By looking inward, you begin to see the shadow aspects of work, the parts that you may be avoiding or that are creating inner conflict, and it is in the acknowledgement of those shadows that true liberation can begin. What if your greatest challenge is actually a gateway to your greatest freedom? This self-awareness leads to a deeper understanding of your unique values, passions, and talents, and creates a path towards a more purposeful and fulfilling life. This is where you can begin to align your actions, your choices, and your daily life with your deepest sense of self. When you are living in alignment with your own values, you are no longer chasing after the false promises of external validation, but rather are being guided from within. This is a radical shift from the externally driven culture that often prioritizes conformity over individuality and productivity over authenticity. When you are connected to your values, the work that you do becomes more than just a means of earning a living, but a way to express your true self and contribute to the world in a way that is uniquely your own. The erosion of individuality that has been a central theme can now begin to be healed as you begin to explore the unique gifts that you have to offer. The loss of self can now be seen as an opportunity to rebuild yourself from a more conscious space with intentionality and purpose. This process of becoming whole is a journey, not a destination. This inner alignment is the very opposite of what the system desires, and thus a powerful form of rebellion. What would happen if everyone chose to live in alignment with their authentic purpose? This process of inner work is not only personally fulfilling, but it also represents a powerful form of rebellion against the meaninglessness and spiritual death that wage slavery creates. The system seeks to define your worth by your output and your net worth, and to convince you that happiness can be found in the accumulation of material goods. Yet, when you embark on the path of inner transformation, you begin to see the falseness of those claims and recognize that your true value lies in your inherent humanity and your unique potential. This realization is a critical turning point, as it shifts the focus from the external to the internal, from what the system values to what you value. When you choose to align with your own inner compass, you are actively rejecting the shallow standards of success that have been imposed upon you, and instead you are choosing to live a more authentic, meaningful, and purposeful life. This is how you combat the killing of your soul and bring life back into your being. This inner work is not a self-indulgent act, but rather an act of self-preservation, a way of protecting your spirit from the corrosive effects of wage slavery. The journey of becoming more alive is the very opposite of the system, and a deeply profound form of self-empowerment. This awareness enables us to understand our own capacity for creating change, not only within ourselves, but also within the world. How can we begin to take these inner changes and express them in a world that is designed to keep us trapped? While inner work is a vital step, it is not sufficient by itself to create lasting change. We must also take action in the world, challenging oppressive structures and building alternative models that support human flourishing rather than exploitation. This is where the outer work becomes a crucial component in the fight against wage slavery. Transforming the system requires more than just individual shifts in consciousness. but rather a collective effort to challenge the systems that perpetuate inequality and to create pathways toward a more equitable and just society. This includes questioning the way that work is structured, challenging the narratives that support consumerism, and advocating for policies that prioritize human well-being over corporate profits. This is how you address the collective shadow, by not only taking action in your own life, but working together for a better world. Think of this as a way of translating all of your inner growth into practical action that has an effect on others, as well as on society as a whole. It's no longer enough to simply wake up. We must also actively participate in the transformation of the world, so that others may also have the same opportunities to break free from the oppressive systems of control. This requires courage, collaboration, and a willingness to step outside the bounds of comfort. What if this outer work was the missing piece of the puzzle in our path towards freedom? Building alternatives to the current economic system is a critical element in creating a world that is less exploitative and more equitable. This requires a shift in focus away from competition and towards cooperation, from separation towards connection, and from individual gain to community well-being. This means developing systems that prioritize human needs over corporate profit and that foster a sense of belonging and mutual support. Consider the rise of worker cooperatives, where employees have a say in how the business is run and in how the profits are distributed, or communitile initiatives that prioritize local economies and sustainable practices. These are examples of ways of creating alternative systems that are more aligned with human values and that are far less exploitative. It's also important to note the growing movement of the sharing economy, that is designed to create a collaborative, rather than a competitive model for the exchange of resources. These types of solutions are not simply idealistic dreams, but very real examples of how people are actively creating a new world, based on the principles of cooperation, sustainability, and mutual support. These are all critical steps towards building a better world, not as some future ideal, but in the here and now. This approach reinforces that the system is not inevitable and that there are other viable options. How can we further amplify these alternatives and make them more visible to a world that is still struggling under the weight of wage slavery? These types of alternative systems are not what the dominant power structures want, because they make people less dependent on the system. A society that is more collaborative, more autonomous, and more connected represents a threat to the established order, which is why these ideas are often suppressed or marginalized in the mainstream media. The system relies on your dependence because that is how it maintains its control. It's also important to note that the narratives that support consumerism, individualism, and competition are actively promoted through media, marketing, and education, because these ideologies prevent people from working together and creating collective change. The lack of real alternatives that are visible to the mainstream public is not an accident, but a designed choice to ensure that the current system maintains control. The only way to create these alternatives is through collaborative efforts, through building community, and through collective action that pushes for change. This is where the power of working together becomes essential. It's vital to understand that the system actively works against the collective good, and that by creating alternative models, we are taking back our power and building a better world. This is a battle for the narratives, for the ideologies, and ultimately for the future of humanity. How can we challenge these systems of control and begin to create a new narrative that supports human flourishing rather than human exploitation? The systems that perpetuate wage slavery rely on misinformation, propaganda, and carefully crafted narratives to keep people dependent. This is a continuation of the theme of manipulation of narratives, as we explore how the system actively creates misinformation to prevent any real pushback. Consider the way that the media often portrays success as a result of individual hard work, ignoring the systemic factors that create inequality and limited opportunities. Or consider how the education system often prioritizes conformity and obedience over creativity and critical thinking, thus preparing students to become compliant workers rather than innovative thinkers. The system subtly influences every aspect of your life, designed to maintain its control. Think of the way that large corporations use advertising to convince you that their products are essential for happiness and success, creating false needs and then profiting from the subsequent consumption. This is not simply a matter of bad advertising, but rather a carefully designed strategy to keep people in the system. This is all part of the manufactured needs we discussed previously. This is all a very strategic effort, and it's important to recognize that these narratives are not innocent or unintentional, but rather a calculated strategy to keep you dependent. This realization that you are being manipulated can be a very powerful first step towards breaking free. What would happen if you stopped believing these false narratives? Recognizing these narratives as a form of manipulation is a critical step in breaking free from their control. Once you become aware of the way that the system is manipulating your thoughts and behaviors, those narratives begin to lose their power. This is where the combination of self-awareness and critical thinking becomes so important. It's not enough to simply recognize the propaganda techniques. You must also have the awareness to see the way that these messages are affecting you on a personal level. When you are able to see these systems at work, the power that they once held begins to dissipate, and it is in that space that real freedom can begin. This ability to discern the difference between truth and falsehood is a crucial skill in the fight against wage slavery, because that discernment enables you to make choices that are more aligned with your own values and with your authentic purpose. This is not a passive observation, but rather an active and conscious practice, a way of reclaiming your agency and disrupting the systems of control that are attempting to keep you trapped. This is how the inner work becomes an outer expression of freedom. How can we begin to actively create new narratives that are based on truth, community, and collaboration? Creating new narratives grounded in truth, community, and collaboration is a vital component in building a more just and equitable society. This is how you begin to dismantle the old stories and build something more authentic. This is the space for creating narratives that prioritize human well-being over corporate profit, and that foster a sense of belonging and mutual support over the isolation and individualism that the system is designed to create. This requires a collective effort to create new messaging, new forms of media, and new ways of communicating that are not controlled by the dominant power structures. These new narratives must be rooted in reality and must be focused on empowering individuals to take control of their lives and to create lasting change, not only for themselves, but for the entire world. The goal is to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, not just a select few, and the narratives we create are the foundations for building that world. Communities that are based on truth and not propaganda are far more resilient, powerful, and able to affect real change in their own lives, as well as in the world. This is where the path of transformation begins, when we choose to create new narratives together. What can we create when we choose truth over manipulation and freedom over control? Challenging the status quo requires courage, a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone and to embrace the uncertainty of creating a new path. This is not an easy journey, but it's a necessary one for anyone seeking true liberation. The path to freedom is rarely comfortable, and it often requires facing fears, insecurities, and doubts. But it is precisely in those moments of discomfort that real growth and real change can occur. This is the combination of both inner and outer work, working in unison, so that you can create real lasting change. This courage is not a reckless act of defiance, but rather a thoughtful and intentional decision to prioritize your own well-being and the well-being of your fellow human beings over the false promises of the system. It also requires a willingness to be vulnerable, to share your struggles, your hopes, and your dreams with others, and to build a community of support that can help you navigate this challenging path. The journey of transformation is not a solitary one, it's a collective endeavor. The question remains: are you willing to take that leap of faith and begin the courageous act of creating a better world? This journey towards freedom is not about achieving some perfect state, but about continuous growth and evolution, both individually and collectively. The aim is not to become perfect, but to always be in the process of becoming something more than you were yesterday. This requires embracing the ups and downs, the wins and the losses, and to recognize that each step along the way is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to evolve. This is how we build resilience, by seeing our challenges as opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. The focus must be on the process, and not solely on the outcome. When you see your challenges as opportunities to grow, you will find that the journey itself is the reward. This path of transformation is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it requires patience, perseverance, and a commitment to lifelong learning. Embrace the discomfort, and know that each step along the way is bringing you closer to the life that you were meant to live. This is a path that we must all walk together. What if all our struggles were simply lessons on our path towards true freedom? The courage to challenge the system is a path to becoming more fully alive, rather than continuing down the path of spiritual and emotional death that wage slavery creates. It is a process of actively choosing life over the slow and insidious death of conformity and dependence. When you make the decision to take your life into your own hands, you begin to reclaim your autonomy, your purpose, and your authentic self. This path will not be easy and will require hard work, vulnerability, and courage, but the rewards are immense. A life that is more meaningful, more fulfilling, and more deeply connected to your values and your unique potential. This is the very opposite of the killing that wage slavery imposes upon you. This is the journey of coming alive, the journey of reclaiming your soul, and it is the most powerful and rewarding path that you can choose. The path is calling. Will you choose to answer? The responsibility for creating this change rests with each one of us, both individually and collectively. The work begins with you, right now, in the choices that you make, in the thoughts that you think, and in the actions that you take. It's not enough to simply be aware of the system, you must also actively participate in creating change. The power is not in any one individual, but it is in the collective whole, when all individuals make intentional choices, aligned with their purpose. The small choices you make today will have a profound impact on the world of tomorrow. This is how true and lasting change is created. It's not in grand gestures, but rather in the consistent and intentional actions of each and every individual. The power is within you, and now is the time to choose what kind of world you want to create. What will you choose? Each individual has the power to create change, even if it seems small or insignificant. Your choices are not inconsequential, they are essential. They are the building blocks of a new world. It is important to recognize that the actions that you take today will accumulate over time, creating meaningful shifts in the very fabric of society. Start by exploring your own values, your own passions, and your unique talents, and then align your daily actions with those deeper truths. Engage in activities that inspire you and that allow you to connect with a sense of purpose. Engage in conversations with your community and build connections that are based on shared values and a collective vision for a better world. Each step, no matter how small, is a contribution to a larger movement towards liberation. The power is not in any one individual, but in the collective action of all. Are you ready to take that first step? Now, the time has come to take what you have learned and to start implementing these concepts into your own life. The path to liberation begins with action. It is not enough to simply understand the system, you must now engage with it. Begin by joining communities, by exploring new skills, by embracing discomfort, and by taking responsibility for your own life and for the lives of those around you. Engage in activities that inspire you and that allow you to connect with others who are also seeking to create a better world. This is the beginning of a journey, not the end, so embrace it with all your heart and allow it to guide you forward. The path to freedom is not easy, but it is the most meaningful and rewarding journey that you can choose. The choice is yours. Now is the time to act. The arguments presented throughout this exploration converge on a central, undeniable truth. Wage slavery is not merely an economic system, but a sophisticated mechanism of control, designed to keep individuals in a perpetual state of dependence, limiting their potential in every area of life. This insidious system seeks to reduce human beings to mere resources, cogs in a machine, stripping away their inherent creativity, autonomy, and sense of purpose, and affecting every aspect of existence, from mental well-being to financial stability. The toll it takes extends far beyond the workplace, infiltrating the deepest recesses of the human psyche, eroding our spirits, and diminishing our capacity for genuine joy. The killing of the soul, as we've explored, is not a metaphor, but a very real and devastating consequence of this system. This is not simply about a job, but the very fabric of our lives, our meaning, our freedom, and our overall potential is being systematically repressed. This truth is not easy to digest, but it's necessary for liberation. The ultimate truth, and perhaps the most challenging revelation of all, is that the cycle of wage slavery is sustained not just by external forces, but by our own complicity, by our willingness to conform to societal norms and accept the narratives that have been so carefully crafted. This is a direct link to the pattern of manipulation of narratives, as it is not just the system that is to blame, but our own unquestioning acceptance of its rules that keeps us locked in the cycle. This is not to say that we are entirely at fault, but rather that we are all, in some ways, both victims and perpetrators of the same system, a deeply complex and nuanced reality that must be faced in order to break free. It is a hard truth to accept that our own choices and beliefs have contributed to this situation, but this awareness is the first step towards real change. This realization may be uncomfortable, but it is also a powerful catalyst for taking personal responsibility. It forces us to acknowledge the parts we have played in the creation of this reality. This conformity, this unquestioning acceptance of the system's rules, leads to the gradual suppression of personal purpose, the abandonment of unique talents, and a pervasive sense of lost potential. When individuals are constantly striving to meet external expectations, rather than pursuing their own passions, they are effectively diminishing their own sense of self, contributing to a society that is overflowing with unrealized dreams, untapped potential, and profound spiritual emptiness. We have all witnessed this loss in our own lives and in the world around us, the stories of people whose brilliance has been squandered, whose creativity has been stifled, and whose unique gifts have been left dormant, all in service to the machine. This is not a natural state of being, but an imposed one, a deep tragedy with broad implications on society and the very core of who we are meant to be. This is a direct consequence of the erosion of individuality and the collective loss that we all face as a result. This loss is palpable, but not irreversible. The implications of wage slavery are not confined to the individual. They extend to the very fabric of communities, society, and the planet itself. The inequalities, the social unrest, and the destruction of our shared home are all interconnected consequences of a system that prioritizes profit over people and exploitation over compassion. We are all interconnected in a delicate web, and when one part suffers, we all suffer. This is the collective shadow at play, an indication that we cannot address these issues in isolation, but must work together to create real change. We are not simply dealing with individual challenges, but with systemic issues that have far-reaching negative consequences on all of us and future generations to come. This interconnectedness is a crucial understanding if we hope to create a truly sustainable and equitable future. The issues we face are not just personal, but profoundly collective. Understanding the patterns we've explored throughout this journey, the cycle of dependence, the manipulation of narratives, and the erosion of individuality, is essential for creating meaningful change. These are not isolated occurrences, but rather interconnected parts of a larger system that must be fully comprehended in order to be effectively challenged. These patterns act as a kind of map, showing us how the system maintains control and provides a guide for where to focus our efforts. These are not abstract concepts, but real tangible forces that are impacting our lives daily, and only by acknowledging their true power can we begin to transform them. When we truly see these patterns for what they are, we can take the next step to begin building a better world. Understanding these core patterns is the key to liberation. It is through a commitment to personal responsibility, a conscious choice to make different decisions, and the application of critical thinking skills that we can create real change. Coupled with collective action, we can pave a path to a more sustainable, equitable, and meaningful existence, one that prioritizes human flourishing over exploitation and collaboration over competition. These are not mere suggestions, but rather vital components of any strategy for creating a better world. This combination of inner transformation and outer action is what creates a more balanced and effective approach, an approach that is both compassionate and powerful. This is not just a lofty goal, but a very real and achievable possibility. This path requires a commitment to growth and a belief in our ability to create change. This is a future that is not only possible, but within our grasp. The core question of how to break free from this cycle finds its answer not in conformity, but in courageous challenge, in creating new, more authentic ways of living and questioning the very foundations of our society. This path is not easy, but it is possible through dedicated inner work and a commitment to collective action. The how is not a simple solution, but a complex process, and the willingness to explore alternative paths. There is no singular answer, but rather many different solutions that can help us move forward, all of which require courage, creativity, and a deep commitment to transformation. The path to liberation is a path of constant becoming, not a singular moment of arrival. This is a journey of self-discovery and collective growth. The integration of inner transformation and collective action is the most effective method of creating lasting change, emphasizing that neither is sufficient alone. It is by working on ourselves that we are able to also work on the collective shadow, because in healing ourselves, we are also contributing to the healing of society as a whole. This is not an either-or proposition, but a both and approach, understanding that both are required in order to create lasting change. The inner work fuels the outer work, and the outer work reflects the inner. These two elements are intricately intertwined, and it is through the acknowledgement of that union that we can create a truly transformative path forward. The healing of ourselves is the healing of the world. The ultimate insight, the most powerful truth, is that genuine freedom lies in the ability to choose our own path, to create our own meaning, and to live in alignment with our most authentic selves, untethered from the expectations and demands of the system. This is the essence of human potential, to be the creators of our own lives, and not merely the recipients of a predetermined script. This is the power to choose, to create, and to live from a place of truth. This is not about avoiding work, but about finding work that is aligned with our values and our unique gifts, which is the embodiment of true freedom. The path to liberation is a path of personal empowerment and authentic self-expression. The freedom we seek is not something given, but something that we choose for ourselves. As we conclude this exploration, let us consider some new questions. What unique talents do you possess, and how might you utilize them to contribute to a more just and equitable world? How can you actively support the communities around you, the ones that are actively creating sustainable alternatives to the current system? These are the questions that will drive our future actions and inspire continued exploration. The journey doesn't end here, it's just the beginning of a new chapter. We must continue to explore, to learn, and to grow. The seeds of transformation have been planted, and now it's time to nurture them. The future is ours to create. The journey to liberation is a lifelong endeavor, a constant evolution, and an ongoing process of learning, reflection, and adaptation. There are no finish lines, no final destinations, but rather a constant unfolding of potential, a path of continuous growth and development. The challenges we face are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth, and our dedication to learning ensures we remain dynamic and adaptable. It is the continuous journey that matters most, not a final destination, and embracing this mindset enables us to continue moving forward, even in times of uncertainty. The path of transformation is a path of constant becoming. As we move forward, it is essential to remain actively engaged in building community, participating in vital conversations, and exploring all available resources. This is not a solitary mission, but a collaborative one, where our interconnectedness is the key to creating real change. We are stronger together, and by working collectively, we can amplify our impact and accelerate our journey towards liberation. It is the combination of individual efforts and collective action that creates true transformation. There is power in community, and we must use that to create real change. This is the path forward together. Let us embrace the power that we possess to create a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world, a world where all can thrive, and where all can experience the richness and fullness of life. While the road ahead may be challenging, it is not insurmountable, and it is through our collective efforts that we can forge a new reality. The difficulties that we face should not discourage us, but inspire us to continue moving forward with courage and a deep sense of purpose. The future is not predetermined, but a reflection of our choices. We have the power to create a better world. It is in our hands.